I've been following your journey, and you've saved, pretty decent amount of money. You're making a pretty decent amount of money. You're originally from Michigan, and you decided to buy a van during the lockdown last summer, and just live in a van and travel around the country, visiting every national park, which is amazing. All right, so what started this? The pandemic?
Well, I've known about van life since like I think when I was in college. And right after I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna take some time off and just travel in a van because I enjoy driving. That's always been my thing since I was little. My mom used to drive us from Michigan to California or Arizona to see my family. And I just enjoy the car rides. And then as I got older and could obviously drive myself, it's been very freeing, I think, to just drive and go for it. So once I graduated, I actually went into corporate. And so it didn't happen, but it's always been kind of in the back of my mind. And then I think in the last 5 or so years, I have moved to maybe 4 states. So I'm not good at staying in the same spot. And I think what was keeping me in those 4 states as long as they did that year was the lease on my house. And so when lockdown happened, they said, basically stay in your house. You can't go anywhere. And I think that almost drove me stir crazy. It felt, and I had a 3-bedroom house and it was just me and my dog. So I became Amazon's kind of best customer and was just filling the house with stuff just because I was at home and I didn't need it. And so I realized when I was in that house, I didn't use but my bed in my room, but there was one room that I just stayed in all day. And so I kind of realized once people started losing their jobs, and fortunately I never did, people were selling their vans or starting to buy vans again. And so it brought back that thing in college, like I want to do this road trip around the country. And so I started looking for vans, and then I found a really great deal on one literally like a few miles from my house. And so I just finally went for it.
Now, it's a van, not an RV. It's an actual van, like not one of them creepy white vans with no windows, but describe the van. Is it a creepy white van,
I mean,
Jasmine?
technically it is a cargo van. It's a big white one. But I did add windows to it, so maybe makes it a little less creepy, but it is a big white one. And it's more like the ones you see, like the delivery trucks maybe Amazon uses versus like the smaller ones that are creepier ones that you see at the park, but it's a big white van. So I guess it's in the same category. But it technically is an RV now after I've added the things that classify as an RV. But when I got it, it was just an empty cargo van that I think before was used for like a bike store or something. So
how much did you pay for the van?
Out the door, I got it for 25,000 taxes and everything included. And it had like 20,000 miles on it. And right now, because van life during the pandemic went crazy popular, the same van is probably closer to 40 or 50. So,
but you tricked yours out. So how much more did you put into your van above the 25,000?
I think well, I've been adding to it, but for the most part, I kept it under like 15, I think, to build it out.
Okay.
Because I did it myself, but I also I have very limited knowledge in building things, so I did what I could. But it's still like I also don't factor in the techie stuff because that's kind of what I had in my house, and then I added to it once I got in it, which most people don't need. But the building itself was for sure like under 10 or 15.
All right, what did you add? What's the tech that you added, and what else did you add?
Yeah, so in my house, I used to be a streamer. So I used to stream video games, and I have this huge, like 34-inch ultra wide monitor, which is mounted on the wall right now. So I brought it with me. And I put in like a dash that has like CarPlay and a DVD player in the front. And I have security cameras inside. And then actually another backup camera in the back. So there's a few different cameras and a security system, so when the doors open and close, I get alerts.
I mean, but it's a van, so it's like if somebody's opening your door, it's like they're already in. It's like closed.
Yeah, and I think like I haven't had an issue or a situation at any point where they've actually been, I wouldn't say useful, but like used. But it's more like peace of mind. And then like I have a camera that I can mount outside, so at nighttime if I wanted. But yeah, if they're already in, it's more like show this to the people later. Just like I actually had an accident in my van like 2 months after I started. Someone ran a red light. but my rear view mirror in the front is actually a camera in the front and the back. So it was helpful in insurance and things. So
come on, cameras, telling the truth.
yeah.
Jasmine Wilson, she's not 30 years old yet. She's a very young person. How successful were you before you had a 3-bedroom house? You have all of this tech. Were you on Twitch playing video games, or were you streaming on Twitch?
I was on Mixer, which is like Microsoft's version of Twitch, which
Okay.
they sold for Facebook now. And I had a Twitch for a little bit. I think I got tired of streaming. But I've always been in tech. Like I was a graphic designer towards the end of college, because that's just all I've known during college. That's what I did. But then when I graduated, like I taught myself product design, and 3 months later I had a job in San Francisco. So I've always been in tech.
Silicon Valley. So that's good money. Is that so? To be not 30, you're making good money. You pick up. Did you tell your your family, I'm going to be traveling the country in a van? Did you tell them, or you just did it?
Well, I told my mom, actually. She was the first person. So she's the one that's always done the road trips. And when we were younger, she always talked about like we should get an RV and drive around the country. And she knew for the longest. The 2 cars I've always wanted were a Honda Element or a Jeep. And it was mostly for this purpose, even when I was younger, like to just drive around and camp in it. So my mom, she's always been supportive. When I first got the van, she drove from Louisiana to come see it, and she wanted to have her little touch on it. So she helped make some of the window covers, because she likes to sew. But she was the first person, super supportive, and she loves it, because we actually took a road trip in it with her. So,
all right, first trip you took, Jasmine, where'd you go?
I went to Big Bend National Park, I think, because I was in Texas already. And I was actually on my way to Arizona to spend the holidays with my sister. So I just took the road trip, and I just took my time to get there. I started December 1st of 2020, I believe. And I drove down to Big Bend, stayed there. First night was in the park, which was I don't know, it was a little scary because I got there at night, but it worked out. And then I drove to White Sands National Park, which I think is one of my favorites at this point, and then to Arizona.
Now we're in a country right now that's a little complicated. You're a Black woman with braids out there in the streets by yourself. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the country has shifted and changed. I think it's a little bit more toxic, particularly in the South and I don't know what it's like in the West and the Midwest. What are you finding while you're on the road in terms of some animus, any? And I think we would camp more if we didn't feel like, white people wouldn't act white camping, because they'd be bugging.
Absolutely. Well, I can say I'm in a space, well, because I worked in tech so long, I'm used to being one of very few or the only Black person in the room. And then I've always had, I guess you can say, different interests. So I'm used to being that person. But I've noticed on the West Coast, maybe for me, I'm just more comfortable. So I spend most of my time on the West Coast, but I did at one point drive from the Midwest through the East Coast just to hit those national parks there. But I kept driving. Like, I didn't take my time. I just went through because it just didn't feel like I wanted to be there. But I haven't had a situation where I felt like something was happening, but I have been in those towns, especially the small towns, where you go to those gas stations and you can tell they're staring at you, and it may not be for good reason. So in those situations, I just how I kind of handle myself in any situation, I do what I need to do and leave, because obviously I have to get gas. But I haven't directly had a situation where someone's told me, something about me. But I've been in plenty of towns, and I think when I was driving through like Kansas maybe, or one of those towns, like states I don't really go through, in Arkansas, I've seen like Confederate flags, and there was a couple of times where I've seen them lined up, and I needed gas, but I figured I was going to go as far as I can, because I just didn't want to stop, because it felt like those towns were still about 60 years behind. So I just wasn't going to risk it for myself. So.
Or 2022, which is
exactly.
The new 2022 is the new 1950s. 866-801-8255. Jasmine Wilson is here. You can follow her at 247px. What does that mean? What is 247px on Twitter?
It's 24/7 pics, but I used to be, I still am very big on like pictures, and I take pictures now. I think I do it more than I did. I just take pictures all day of everything, and I think that's just a number that I stuck with.
What can you tell? We had a spiritual declutterer and a home declutterer on last week, Christine Platt. What can you tell people about packing up your home, getting a van, and taking to the road in terms of what you need and what you don't need?
Yeah, I am not the minimalist person yet. I'm getting there. I realize like I should be. I still have storage in Austin. One, because my mom said, like, you just bought this couch a year ago when I went to Austin, and you might not do this very long, so not to throw it away yet. And then I realized I really enjoy this, and I haven't been to that storage. I haven't seen those things since I left, really. So you realize when you're in a small space, there's so, like, you feel like you need so much more, but you don't. Like, I was very much over prepared. I was buying all these camping things that I feel like I'm gonna need, when in reality, like, I'm in a van, I'm in a small home, but it's still home. And just like when I was at my house, I was buying things to fill the space that I felt like I'll need at some point, but I never actually used. And so I've actually, in these last few months, been getting rid of a lot, including clothes, which I was big on. Like, I don't have as many clothes. For the last probably 4 years, I've only worn black, but in general, like, it becomes very repetitive. And so, like, a lot of these things I was over prepared for, and I know they say you should be more over prepared than under prepared, but when you're in a small space, you utilize every little bit of space that you have, but you also realize the things that you could have in that space if you didn't have these extraneous things. So I'm working on becoming a minimalist, and I'm starting at this summer. I'm actually going to empty out my storage. So.
Oh, okay, Jasmine. That's a commitment. All right. So this would be my problem with doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. The bathroom. I like to, luxuriate. I like to go to the bathroom. When I like to go to the bathroom, I feel like being in a van, you are subject to using public places, which I don't do very well. I don't do public places. I'm not doing campgrounds with a bunch of booties been on the toilet seats and stuff. I just struggle. I struggle in hotels. I struggle.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. I probably couldn't do this. Mm-hmm. So what are you doing? How are you doing it?
I think that's everyone's like biggest gripe on it. It's surprisingly, like, they don't mind the small space. It's the bathroom. And so I have my own, like, camper toilet porta potty thing here. So I don't have to, like, go out and use public ones all the time. And for showers, that's always the next biggest question. I have abilities, if I do camp out, like out in the wilderness, which I have done, I've started to do a little bit more. I have a way to shower outdoors, which is actually very liberating. But I also have hot water and a whole, like, shower head and everything in my van. And it usually drains out, but I have, like, a working sink, hot water. And I have hot water that's for my shower specifically. And one thing I'll say, like, I at first built my van for me, because I'm a very simple person in general. Like, I don't have a full kitchen, but I have everything you could do to cook. But I have, like, my friend Antoinette I've been traveling with. Hers is definitely a luxury van. She has a full shower, full kitchen. Everything's electrical, white and gold finishes. Like, there's so many different ways.
There are levels to this.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to do van life. And I think the people's first impression is, and I've run into a woman that actually basically thought I was homeless. But there's so many different ways to do this. And some people don't realize there's people that live in these vans that have spent over $100,000. There's vans that are $200,000 for basically the same one, but more luxury in it, that people are paying for houses. They're paying for a van. So there's levels, like you said, to it.
I mean, there's a housing shortage, meaning there's not enough inventory. People want to own homes. People want to have flexibility and freedom. Folks now are no longer tethered to a state because this pandemic has opened things up. If you're interested in, freeing yourself, van life might be a thing. So you keep saying van life. Is this a movement? Is this a movement, Jasmine?
It's been around for a long time, but I would say it's a movement, and now it's become super popular with the pandemic, but it's been around for a long time. Maybe not in our community, Black people that look like us.
Right.
I think I'm crazy. But, like, in general, it's been a thing. People obviously lived in cars for different reasons, like because they had to. And I've been called a number of different things because I do it and I can afford to buy a house. But for me, it's a choice. And it's a really great choice. And a lot of people don't have the luxury to have it as a choice. But I actually went to a meetup last year where there was 1,000 vans, all of us on BLM land, so like free land, for a weekend. 1,000 different vans, and you'll see older vans, newer vans, big ones, little ones, and people working, not working, but from all these different walks of life. But I can say the people that I've met, they're all the nicest, chillest people, most helpful people I've met. And you can't tell what they do for a living because we're all kind of doing the same thing. So.
Jasmine, 24/7 pics, PX. They can also follow your journey. You have a channel where you, or I've seen videos. Where can they see your van life experience?
I have some videos on YouTube at Hey Jasmine, but I'm very much a photographer. I would say I like pictures. So Instagram, Hey Jasmine J, is the most current, I would say. And you can see the most recent things I do and have done.
Okay, so it's Thrive Thursday on the Karen Hunter Show. We're talking with Jasmine Wilson. She is part of the van life. How's your money stacked up during this time, and what are you investing in while you're on the road, and how do you keep in touch with your investments, Jasmine Wilson?
Yeah, I think the first thing I told myself was like what I was paying in rent, I just keep in an account and just pretend like I was paying rent. It just goes into an account automatically. And I am a part of what they call tech Twitter or whatever. So I'm constantly learning about investing. I'm not maybe the best one to talk to about it, but I'm learning about investing because I know so much about tech. That's where I keep my focus at, because I know about tech and where it's going. And then I try to utilize like high yield savings so that my money is making me money while it's sitting there. But I'm trying also to get to, before I'm finished with this, I want to be debt free. Like the only real debt I have, I paid my van off and everything in it. It's just mostly student loans at this point. But I'm working on having a savings, but I also have a plan for when I do turn 30 to get a tiny home, because I just enjoy small spaces. And then to have my own land so that my land can make money too. So I'm trying to in the future, but we're here.
So for those you wondering, Jasmine was making $300,000 a year, still is making $300,000. She's probably making more than $300,000 a year. She's making more than $300,000 a year. I'm gonna say this again. She makes more than $300,000 a year. And you're not just trying to be debt free, because this is, is there a magic number? Do you know what your number is to never have to work?
No, well, the thing is, I actually enjoy what I do. And I think that's why I make so much, because I work, I don't know if you know, I work 3 jobs and to make that over 300. But I genuinely enjoy the work that I do. I'm a product designer, so I design apps and websites. It's cool. Like there's not a lot of people that look like me in it. It's a growing field, but I genuinely enjoy what I do. And I told myself at any point, if these jobs became a stress or an inconvenience, I obviously don't have to work them. But I choose to, and I've done it for over a year now because it's enjoyable, and there's no need to, if it's easy money, I'm gonna make it, basically.
Come on through. And she has no stress. I can see she's so stressless. She's just so relaxed. Jazz, I want this for everybody. All right. 866-801-8255. And I'm happy for you. The most extravagant thing you've done, because you can, the most extravagant thing you've done in van life.
Actually, the month of December and a bit of January, I drove in a small caravan of other Black van lifers that are my friends. We drove all the way down to Cabo, Mexico, like all the way down. I spent a month and a half in Mexico while I was still working 3 jobs. And I don't stress over it. My jobs are very chill and understanding. But I drove all the way to Mexico. We went to like super nice Airbnbs overlooking water in Cabo, jet skiing, all these snorkeling and skiing, and all these are like, it's called e-foiling. So like somewhat like electric surfing. But these are things I've never done before. And my jobs give me the freedom to do it. But it's definitely the best decision I've ever made to be in a van. I actually never regretted or was like waiting for the moment to go buy a house, because I still don't have that in my head. But we're actually planning another trip. And then next month out of the country. So like flying, but I have so much flexibility, and obviously the money allows me to do it. And then my jobs as well. And then another, hopefully maybe drive the Pan Am or up to Canada. But like it's been the best decision.
Where do you park your van when you go out of the country?
Well, I will park it at like my sister's or my mom's,
Okay.
just because they can watch it. But there's people that do it, fly to different countries, and they just park it at like the airport just so it's watched.
Ah,
on security.
okay,
So
that makes sense.